Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on how do I make time for SEL. My name is Rachel Escobedo. I am the online ambassador for Sanford Harmony, and I will be moderating today's session. Our speaker today is Yako Shotuku. She is our Sanford Harmony trainer out of New York City, and I'm going to read a little bit about Yako's background. So Yako is a native of Philadelphia and has lived in New York City for over 20 years. She was an elementary school teacher in the New York City public school system and has recently worked as an educational consultant and teacher trainer. All right, welcome, Yako.
Hi, everyone. This title of this webinar is called How Do I Make Time for SEL? So we are going to explore some ways to think about SEL. And we're thinking about SEL in terms of implementation, but really more importantly, integration. Everyone knows that teachers have a lot of things, right? They have knowledge, they have patience, they have a bag of tricks, but what they don't have is a lot of time. Never enough time. So as we go through this webinar, I want you to think of SEL not as something that you do. We're going to just do SEL. I want you to think of it more in terms of how you're going to integrate it into your everyday life, into your everyday school life. It will be something that just is, as opposed to something that you just do. Today, I just want to highlight a couple of things that you will learn today. We're going to learn at the very beginning the impact of SEL, right? So anything that we implement in schools and to children, we want to make sure that it's something that is important. We want to make sure that it's something that has been that's evidence-based and that's researched. And we're going to talk about making time. Making time, everyone, really is a value judgment. If I were to take SEL out of that title and say, how do I make time for blank? Really, anything that I put in that line is a value judgment. You've got to really think that that thing, whatever is in that blank line, is something that's important. It's something that's of value. And so when we talk about or think about SEL in our rooms, social emotional learning, we've got to think that it's something important. I'm going to do a couple of sample schedules. We're going to look at the Sanford Harmony components and talk about a couple of ways to bring out and maximize and optimize time in terms of the Sanford Harmony components. We're going to look at a section I call Out of Time, and we're going to look at Sanford Harmony resources. If you didn't already know, Sanford Harmony has been named a CASEL Select program. And so a little bit more about this. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. That's what CASEL stands for. And it's a leading authority in the field of SEL science. And so when you have been chosen as a CASEL Select program, basically what that means is you have been approved and as a program that is effective, that is evidence-based, and that an organization should feel comfortable with choosing as its SEL program. So if you would indulge me for 5 minutes, I don't even think it's going to take 5, but if you would indulge me, I'm going to call this my soapbox moment. I would like to just share with you a little bit of research. If you're not convinced, if you're still on the fence, I don't know about this SEL thing. I don't know if I really want to take the time in my classroom. I've got so much content to get through. I want to give you just a little bit of research that I got from CASEL on the impact of SEL. And so there are 4 key areas in which social emotional learning can have positive and lasting outcomes. The first one is academics. According to a 2011 meta-analysis of about 213 studies, 270,000 students who participated in an evidence-based SEL program showed an 11 percentage point gain in academic achievement. All of those teachers on the front line know that's huge. It's really moving the needle a lot. Another key area that SEL has an impact on is equity and poverty. The skills and tools gained in evidence-based SEL programs are crucial to an enhanced and better quality of life, educationally, in employment, and family life. So we really, the lasting effects and the impact are really far-reaching. The cost-benefit analysis. So as most of you know, and if you don't know, I'll share with you now, the Sanford Harmony program is, because of our great benefactor, T. Denny Sanford, and because of National University, is free, is no cost to organizations and to schools. But even though it's not a cost to you, there is still a cost to make it and to share it and to offer training. But I want to share with you that there is an actual ROI, a return on investment in SEL programs. And the ROI yields a measurable benefit of 11 to 1. So what does that mean in layman's terms? In layman's terms, it means that for every dollar spent on a quality SEL program, you are getting an $11 return on that, on the time and investment spent. So where teachers, educators, you may not be investing money per se, but you're investing time, you're investing consistent use. So you are in fact getting a return on your investment. The lifetime outcomes. A 2015 study, national study from the American Journal of Public Health, determined that children who begin SEL programs in kindergarten saw key outcomes in their young adult life, in education, in employment, in the reduction of criminal activity, in the reduction of substance use, and in a better quality of mental health. So basically what that means, again, in layman's terms, is the tools that we're giving the children to manage their stuff, as I call it, to manage their social emotional stuff, is going to have lasting impact and on their lifetime outcomes. So if you were on the fence, if you were still like, I don't know, I haven't been persuaded, I hope that the research done by Castle will really persuade you to invest more, to think about SEL more, and to think that the tools that we're giving the children now will have a lasting outcome. I don't think that took 5 minutes, did it? I hope not. Okay, so let's go on. If you know me, you have probably heard me say this phrase. If you fail to plan, you plan to... What do I fill in with that line? Write it in your chat box. Now, I know you're like, Yako, really? But listen, we want to just make sure that there might be someone on this webinar that has been living in a substation in the Arctic and they have never heard this phrase before ever in their life. So we want to make sure that they know. If you fail to plan, you plan to... Rachel, what is everybody saying?
Fail. We're getting lots of responses that say fail.
Absolutely. Yes. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you have been living under a rock in Saskatchewan, now you know the phrase. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And everyone, part of making time for SEL is in the planning. During training, I suggest to educators all the time that they plan for Sanford Harmony components the same way that they plan for all of their subjects. So you've got to plan. So let's talk about making the time. I have created, and for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to be using a lot of the Sanford Harmony components. Just to let you know. So I've created this schedule, a sample schedule, and I want you to notice a couple of things. So let's say it's the weekend, I'm doing my lesson plans, and okay, I want to make sure that I integrate Sanford Harmony into my schedule for this week. So for this week, I have a meetup 3 times a week, and I have my buddy up 2 times a week. Notice that I have used my collaboration cards, my quick connection cards, and I have used my conversation cards, but I've used them very strategically. I call this the family theme. Can anybody guess why I've called it the family theme? If you notice, for Tuesday and Thursday for my conversation cards, I have cards that are related to family. So what is one thing you have learned from a family member, or what is your favorite thing to do with family? But guess what? I've also themed my meetup. I have themed my meetup, and if I were to call it, give it a title, I would call it my word builder theme. On Monday, I had the kids making word associations. On Wednesday, I had them doing the sentence builder card. On Friday, I had them doing the human word search card, where you give each child a piece of paper with a letter, and then they have to combine as many words as possible. So I was the kind of teacher that if I got a resource, I would absolutely squeeze the life out of it. By the time I finished with that resource, it was on life support. So you want to make sure that these resources, that you absolutely squeeze the life out of them. So while you're fitting in your Sanford Harmony social emotional learning components, I'm also fitting in ways to help myself. Students are always, in every discipline, going to need help with word building, with sentence structure, with word search, with all kinds of critical thinking skills. So in this schedule, while I'm filling in my Sanford Harmony components and my meetup and my buddy up for this week, I'm helping the children, right? But they're also helping me, because I've themed it in a way that will kill two birds with one stone. Does that make sense, everybody? The last thing I want you to notice about this schedule is that on Wednesday, I have doing the meetup with a para. Now, in your state, or in your city, you may call them something else. In New York City, we call them paraprofessionals, and they are helpers that are in the classroom that help you with your class. They can help with small group work. I am absolutely a lover of putting everybody to work. And so teachers or educators or lead teachers, I don't want you to think that you have to take all of this on yourself. You know, part of social emotional learning really also is engaging the whole village. You know that phrase that says it takes a village to raise a child? It really is incorporating the entire village in this SEL journey. You don't want to have a portion of the school really focus on SEL and the rest of the school is like, meh. You want everybody involved. And so even if your paras don't come to the training, even if they're not a part of the training, it's super easy to just give your paras a quick training on how to conduct a meetup. You can give them this sheet, the note sheet that you got during training, and show them how to conduct a meetup, right? And so where on Monday and on Wednesday, the meetup is with the teacher, your Wednesday can be a meetup with the para, or with your student teacher, or with your student volunteers, or anybody, any of the adult hands in the room. You can put them to work with your SEL skills. There are going to be lots of kids who need a little extra in terms of their SEL skills. Maybe they're anxious, maybe they're angry, and they need a little bit of extra help. You can utilize the extra adults in your room. Here is the second schedule that I've created, and it's called the Friend Theme. I want you to take just a second and read how I've chosen to do Buddy Up. I've got Buddy Up 3 times a week this week and Meet Up 2 times a week. But I want you to take a look at the quick connection cards. Just take a brief gander at them. I'm calling this week the Friend Theme Week. If you'll notice, I've got an entire week of friend stuff. Why are friends important to you? And which of your qualities make you a good friend? And all of my activities have to do with that physical aspect of being a friend. I really want to just, the purpose of these two schedules is to really let you know that in making time for SEL, themes can be a really great way of making time. Anybody ever watch like Nat Geo channel? Like when they do Shark Week, right? Or Big Fish Week or Orca Week. It builds a level of excitement. It builds a level of concentrated focus. And that will, in effect, be helpful for you and helpful for the kids. Imagine if when you uncover your buddy week for the week, this is just a suggestion, you incorporated a theme week, right? So when you uncover your buddy week for the week, you're like, this week is family week, woohoo! Or this week is friend week. And you building a lot of hype, buy-in, excitement on what you're doing for that week, right? So even if there are ones who are still not, who are still feeling some kind of way about Buddy Week, we can call it, and then you've got another theme. You've got something else for them to be attached to and excited about. If I were if I were still in the classroom in New York City, and I'm just telling you how it is for my kids, it may be this way in your city too. But in New York, we're not always as polite. We're friendly, but we're not always as polite. I know for sure with my kids, if I were uncovering a buddy week, I would call one of my weeks Getting in Your Feelings Week. I would call it that. You know how some of the kids talk? That's some of the popular lingo, if you didn't know. Oh, you're all in your feelings. I would theme that. I would say, yeah, this week we're going to do our Getting in Your Feelings Week. And that week I would choose all the cards that took a deep dive into feelings. So what I did, and I just want to share with you, is for these sample schedules, I took all the quick connection cards and I laid them out and I put them into categories. That's what I did for this section of themes. I put them into categories and I put all of the questions and conversations that had to do with like really deep feelings. What are the things that make you really upset? What are the things that like ones that took the really deep dive? And I put those in a category. I put the ones that have to do with family in a category, with friends in a category. And again, this is just a suggestion. And that way, for my Getting in Your Feelings week, it would be the really deep dive. So kids would know already, oh boy, we're going to go there this week in terms of our feelings. So that's just a suggestion, everybody, for a way to make time, a way to have buy-in, a way to create hype in terms of social emotional learning. Let me just say that if you have questions, if you are thinking, I don't know, Yako, I don't know how that'll work with my school, let's talk about it. Put a question in the chat box, and towards the end, we will get into it. Okay, moving on. So for the Sanford Harmony components, we know that Meet Up and Buddy Up are what we call our everyday practices. Our everyday practices, being things that we want to learn how to do, or that we want to do every day, if at all possible. Okay, so let's take a look at Meet Up. As you know, the purpose of Meet Up, just in case there's anybody that's brand new to the Sanford Harmony family, as you know, the purpose of Meet Up is to build and strengthen community. We want to create and maintain a safe and comfortable learning environment for students that will give them an opportunity to feel connected to the group and also to be a contributor to the class identity. So when are good times to do Meet Up? When I polled my colleagues and teachers, I took their most popular answers in terms of the best times that they have found in practice to do Meet Up. One of the popular ways they said was after lunch. It gets kids refocused after all their chatting and chewing after lunch. They used Meet Up to solve any minor dust-ups or any social issues that took place during lunch. Another popular way was to use Meet Up was advisory. Advisory is if you're still using advisory in your area, advisory is like, there's a little bit of time, right? There's time enough to do a brief activity, but not quite long enough to take a total deep dive. So it's a perfect time to make that connection, to build that community in just a little bit of time and have the students connect with one another. Friday morning or afternoon. The whole week has gone by and you made it through. You made it through as teachers, but look, the kids have made it through too, right? And it's a great time to talk about the week, to talk about what happened during the week, to reflect. I want you to just think in terms of Friday mornings or afternoon, right? In social emotional learning, we're giving kids the tools for reflecting on their thoughts, reflecting on their actions that week. And we may actually be helping some kids and giving them lifelong transferable skills. Reflection is a really important part of growth and development in any area. And using Meetup, using this time of reflection is going to give them an opportunity to really incorporate that into their daily life practices. The last way of Meetup I want to reemphasize is using that small group with a paraprofessional. You don't have to take Meetup on your own. If you want to go ahead and start your day with your content, you can take your push-in person can take a small group on the side and do Meetup with your special, really, really special kids. Those ones who really need a little extra help. You can do a side group and do a little bit of extra social emotional learning. So we've got Buddy Up, which is also an everyday practice. I want you to know that studies show that positive peer relationships are important for school success and overall adjustment. Excuse me. This seems like common knowledge, like, of course, Yako, duh. But students really have to learn how to get along, right? It doesn't just happen through osmosis. We have to show them how to get along with each other, how to solve conflict with each other, and connect with each other one-on-one, right? We have to teach them how to do that. So one of the best times to use and utilize Buddy Up. We'll do now, of course. Calling all elective teachers, science, social studies, health. I always think about during trainings I always try to find out during my trainings who are the elective teachers, where's the health teacher, where's the social studies teacher, where's the science teacher, because at the end of the training, I always know that one of them is going to ask me, so, what about me? How is this going to fit in for me? When am I supposed to fit this in? You know that I only have 45 minutes, right? You know that I only have 50 minutes to fit in my content. I really like this, but how am I going to fit this in? Do Now is a great opportunity. And for anybody that doesn't know Do Now, it really is what Do Now looks like in your room. Is that it's an activity basically that as students are coming in, they already know that there's something that they need to do. No time for talking, no time for socializing. It's time to do the Do Now. So it's an activity, and you can use your quick connection cards to do it as your Do Now, and it won't affect your content. You could do the Do Now as a way for students to make a personal connection in your room. And that way, when you have them get together to do other projects, they know each other a little bit better. Snack time and class transition is also listed as a really important and popular time to do Buddy Up. So in the morning, if they're having breakfast with you or class transition time, Buddy Up is important. At the end of the period is also a really good time to do Buddy Up. Maybe you want to leave 5 minutes to pull out your quick connection card and use a Buddy Up. And in the valley. What the heck's in the valley, Yako? I will tell you. Any of you guys who were in the classroom and you find that you are teaching a lesson and you're talking to yourself, You're talking to the walls. The kids are not paying a bit of attention to you for any number of reasons. I found that happened to me most often when it was close to holidays, right? When it's Christmas time and they're thinking about, oh, the big wheel. Oh, did I just say big wheel? I just dated myself, right? When they're thinking about the toys that they're going to get, or some holiday that's coming up, or spring break, and they're just not thinking about you. Their minds are somewhere else, and you know that you've got to redirect. Yes, you're spending all your time redirecting. Go ahead and do a buddy up. Yeah, listen, we got to scrap this. I know I'm not the only one, right, that has had to scrap something. Listen, I got to go back to this. Nobody's paying attention. So it's a great time in the valley. Another in the valley moment is when there have been several dust-ups in your room. Yeah, two people have not gotten along, and it has become a class-wide problem-solving conflict, and you really know that you've got to implement some extra tools with learning how to get along with learning for the students to really get along with each other. So it could be during those times. So the in the valley moments are the times where, whoa, we really need to reassess. We really need to redirect. Let me go ahead and do that with Buddy Up. Let me break this group down. Let me get them into talking with a peer, and let me get control of this class again. Make sense? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay. The last component in Harmony, we've done Meetup, we've talked about Buddy Up, are the Harmony unit lessons. I would say that the Harmony unit lessons are probably the most difficult to manage in terms of time. They are the ones during training where the teachers are like, whoa, how am I going to fit this in? Now, typically we say, okay, well, you should probably do your Harmony units about once a week. And sometimes teachers get to the units once a week or once every 2 weeks. Sometimes they don't. But what I want to do, and it'll take me, again, less than 5 minutes. I want to show you what I've done to a lesson to make it more palatable, I guess, if you will, in terms of time. I'm going to take one lesson from the book, and I'm going to show you a way of looking at it in order to tackle it, and to be able to teach it in your room. We're going to look at the 3rd grade problem-solving unit, activity 4.1. And I have put the pages on the screen of the lesson. So this is 3rd grade, 4.1, animals in conflict. And so what I have done is I have cut up this lesson to make it more palatable for me. If I'm going to do this lesson, I got to do it the way I got to do it in order to get it across. So at the beginning, there is a setting the stage. If you've looked in the Harmony unit book, there's a section that says setting the stage for this unit. And it reminds the students about their experiences of communication. So let me just read a little bit. As a part of Sanford Harmony, we have been participating in activities that help us create a positive classroom community. For weeks, we've been working on using effective communication strategies, and I'm going down. We've used communication bloopers and boosters. So that I would make my motivation. If we're looking at workshop model, that I would make my motivation. Hey guys, remember what we were talking about? Our communication strategies? There's my motivation. The next section of the lesson is the section that says facilitate the activity. It says placing the students in diverse groups, hand out strips of paper, and instruct each to write down a conflict. I'm scrapping that. I'm going to do it, but that's going to be my buddy up. I'm not going to use the quick connection cards here. That, anytime in the lessons where there's an opportunity to break students up into groups, I'm going to make that my buddy up time. That way, I don't have to pull out my quick connection cards here. I'm going to break the kids up into duets or to trios, and this is going to be my buddy up time within my lesson. So in this section, they have to think about conflicts, right? Let me read. I want each of you to think about conflicts that happen in the school, right? So they can think about things that have gone down in the school, in the classroom, in the hallway, in the lunchroom, and write down a conflict on a strip of paper. And so let's continue with the buddy up. I would extend it and say, when the students are finished brainstorming solutions as a class, instruct students to brainstorm solutions in their group. So that's what they're going to do in their buddy up, right? They're going to talk about conflicts. They could even talk about conflicts that have happened with themselves. Yeah? Let's bring it home. Let's make this as pragmatic as possible, as pragmatic as we can. That will be the buddy up. They will take their conflicts and they will write them down and put them in the bowl. Then, as I move on in my workshop model in the lesson, I'm going to use the 15 minutes as my refresh and instruction. In this section, I'm going to remind them about passive, assertive, and aggressive problem-solving styles. Okay, that's where I use my refresh and my instruction, and then the students are going to pull their conflicts out and then put them in categories of, is this a passive way of problem solving, an assertive, or an aggressive style? Does that make sense, everybody? So I've taken my lesson, I've cut it up, I've incorporated a buddy up already built into the lesson, and then I have kind of cut the time. So that is what I would do. I know that I would do for my lesson. And then the last 5 minutes, I would share out, right? I'm still in workshop model, the way that the lessons are, and this is the way that it works for me. Yes, the students will talk about what they've learned. They'll talk about what they've learned about conflict, and that way I've gotten in my lessons, and I've gotten in the lesson, and I've cut away a little bit of time. The requirement from you is to really just look at the lesson before you implement it and find out and figure out ways that you can incorporate components of Sanford Harmony, the buddy up, and still continue to teach the lesson. Does that make sense, everybody? All right. I'm calling this section out of time. So I was a teacher in public school for 11 years. So for the first 7 or 8 years, I taught 5th grade and I taught 3rd grade. But even though my license was in Common Branches in New York City, which was pre-K to 6, we became a 7th and 8th grade school. We became pre-K to 8. And I started teaching gym and dance from pre-K to 8. Fascinating story if you ever want to email me. Fascinating of how I got to do that. But I taught gym and dance pre-K to 8. So at that time, PDs were just a budding notion. Yes, they were not the force that they are now. We were just beginning to do, I know I'm dating myself again, right? We were just beginning to do PDs. And so as a gym teacher, gym/health/dance teacher, I when it came to PDs, I was like, okay, so what about me? And they would just throw me anywhere. Oh, Yako, go to 204. Oh, go to the such and such. I was just kind of thrown to the wind. And so this section is because I had such a compassion for school staff that are not necessarily classroom teachers, yes, but you're still very much a part of the children's lives. This section is for all of those people during training who were like, what about me? I want to do it too. This is for you. So if you are a guidance or a social worker, I want you to think about ways of using a couple of ways of using the Sanford Harmony components. One of the ways that you can do that is with the buddy up pair. You can break up your group, take your group of people that and break them into duets or to trios, and you can do some of the quick connection cards. You can break them up, do buddy up pairs, even with the content that you still have and that you want to get across. You can use the buddy up pairs to get your content across as well. You can also use the quick connection cards to help with, the student bonding. The other way you can use these components is with the games. So those of you who are taking the third, fourth, all the way up grades, this is a perfect time to utilize games for your children. It still is going to meet the needs of your students in terms of SEL, but it's going to do it in a fun and fresh way. So your guidance in social workers, I got you covered. Your math and science teachers. You want to use these components in SEL. You're wondering how you're going to do that. You've got all that content to get through this entire year. How about this? When you do your buddy up, think of write a math problem. Get the students to write a math problem based on the information you know about your buddy. You science teachers, there is a quick connection card that talks about what's your favorite vacation spot. I'm going to get the kids to create a list of animals that inhabit that space. Yes? So boom, I can create a center with that as well. So science teachers, I got you covered. And then I want to reiterate the do now. Do nows are a great way for you to implement the social emotional learning in your classroom, and it doesn't affect your content. You ELA teachers, yes. Of course, it seems easiest for you, yeah, because you've got the Common Core, you've got the standards for listening and speaking and writing. So you can use your quick connection cards as writing prompts. Yes? Writing prompts, you can put your quick connection cards in centers. Yes? You can use them to do Venn diagrams. Yes? Your writing prompt. So for your listening speaking model, again, use the hands that you're given. Your student teachers, your class volunteers, they are great for utilizing social emotional learning, but making extension activities. Yes, use them. Your writing prompts during small group or center time, awesome. And then you could use your buddy up for projects. So if you use your buddy up in a classroom, either for a do now or for a specific project, then you've got kids that are used to one another, that know each other really well, that feel comfortable with one another. Can I give you guys a project? Can I give somebody who's listening to me a charge for a project? How about this? Wouldn't it be awesome to have the kids create a buddy up card group, but a set of class kid student created buddy up cards? I think that would be great, right? So you've got your own box, right, of the Sanford Harmony buddy up cards, but then you've got a student written set of cards. I mean, if that is not a great way of demonstrating impact, of course you're not going to do this right away, right? We have to get them used with to the kinds of questions that are involved in bonding and peer, relationships. Yes, I'm thinking this would be a great project for the spring. Yes, give some extra credit. Oh, those cards will start pouring in. Yes. It's a great way for students to demonstrate that they really do understand what it means to make a personal connection, the kinds of questions that they should be asking one another, that they should be discussing in terms of bonding with someone else. I think it would be great. Hopefully somebody will take that charge. We are actually at the end. I am concluding there. I hope that there was something that you can take away. I hope that I have turned on a light bulb in some of your minds of a way of incorporating this social emotional learning into a part of your day, and turned on a light bulb for something that you can do. I hope that you will let me know too as well. the light bulb moment, the aha, as Oprah calls it, your aha moment for making time for SEL is, again, it's a value judgment. You've got to believe it is important. I want you to also visit our Sanford Harmony YouTube channel. There are other webinars that are very similar to what I've talked about today, some of the components that I've talked about. 5 strategies to build community in your SEL classroom, Harmony after school, 6 easy tips for integrating Harmony strategies into your upper grade schedules. And so let's just sum up. I want you to really think about reflecting on the importance of SEL and your classroom goals. You've really, really, really got to think it's important to take the time for it and to make the time for it. So half of the battle is the way that you believe, what you believe about SEL, and whether or not you really do think it's important for your children. Frequently reinforce the purpose of positive social emotional health to your students. You know, there's no reason to keep it from them. Yeah, we are letting them know, this is why I'm doing this. I would even share with them some of the impact. Do you know that with the tools I'm sharing, this is how it's going to impact you later in life? I would just share it right out with them. The kids are much smarter than many of us give them credit for. Keep it fun, keep it fresh. Buy-ins, theme weeks, doing things that are like, oh my goodness, this is going to be fun, or what's going to happen this week? I don't know. Keeping it fun and fresh is important. Consistency is key. You've got to make, part of consistency is planning, making a sample schedule. You don't have to pull out spreadsheets and Excel spreadsheet stuff. It really is not that complicated. Making a simple schedule can be all that it takes to keep it consistent and utilize the programs and utilize Sanford Harmony online resources, which Rachel, I'm sure, is going to talk about as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Jaco. What a wonderful presentation. Love your enthusiasm. Love your ideas. You gave us a lot to digest, and definitely hope that some of our audience or many of our audience members will utilize a lot of your strategies and tips. I do want to let everyone know that they will get a recording of this webinar if you are interested in reviewing what we learned today, and that recording should come within the next 24 to 48 hours. So please be on the lookout for that. Now it is time for questions. If anybody has questions for Jaco, please go ahead and enter them into your questions box, and I'd be happy to read them out loud.
Or you can share any aha moments that you have.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea. Share some aha moments. Jaco, we have one question. Could you put the themes slide back up for a moment?
Sure. No problem. Let me go back, back, and back. This is the one you want?
I believe so. The family theme, and we have the friend theme. Oh, the overall harmony units theme slide.
The overall harmony unit. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm sure there's a better way of doing that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right, here comes a question about special ed. I'm a special ed teacher. How do I incorporate harmony with my SPED students?
Oh, great. I think that all of the components are absolutely, I think that the components as they are absolutely usable for special ed. I mean, the kids part of whatever, wherever your students are in terms of, what kind of area you're teaching. Meet up and buddy up are absolutely great. What it will require is that you will probably have to model a little bit more or explain the questions or break them down, depending on where your students are, break them down a little bit more. So if I was using the one, let's just say, on what has made you really upset, you may do that as a small group and as a model, yes? And then let the kids break that down. So I would say, what has really made you upset? Or has anyone really hurt you? And a couple of kids, one or two, give examples, yes, of something that has hurt them and what they chose to do about it. And then turn that over into the buddy up and let them talk amongst themselves, just so that they get used to talking with their peers. So it's absolutely usable, but it will probably take 1 to 2 extra steps in terms of special ed of modeling it small group and then letting them turn to their peers. The same with Meetup. It'll probably take you a little bit longer just to get the flow of them sharing and the purpose of it and getting them used to talking to each other. When it comes to the sharing and responding of Meetup, getting one person to share and getting the rest of the kids to ask questions about what has been sharing, that will, depending on where your kids are, that component may take you a couple of weeks. And so in special ed, I would say break down the components a little bit further. So where if you have that note-taking sheet, yes, of the components of Meetup, I would say break those down and instead of doing it all at one setting, take each component and break it down like over the course of a couple of days, just so that they know how to work it.
Great. Thank you so much. We have some comments come in, maybe those aha moments. One person says, lots of great ideas. Love the idea of squeeze everything you can out of it. I love that. Yeah, I haven't heard that terminology before. I like it. Squeeze everything you can out of it, because we really do have a lot of content and wonderful resources for you. And Yako's right. Really take the time and dive right in. But yes, plan too, because if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail.
Yeah.
Another comment. I love the theme week idea. We will incorporate this in our retreat to plan for next year. So far, I am thinking of these themes: friends, healthy choices, kindness, manners, helpers, teamwork, feelings, Dr. Seuss, staff appreciation. I am in an all kindergarten building.
Great. Absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, great ideas. Theme weeks are really fun. These are so many things you can do with it. I love that idea.
Absolutely.
All right, another question coming in. I have a lot of English learners in my classroom. Tell me how I can better incorporate harmony with my English learners.
When I do the training, I really try to encourage a lot of buddy up, right? And this is the example that I use. I use the example of if you've ever tried to learn a language, right? It's always best when you're with one other person as opposed to messing up in front of a whole group of people, like the conjugation of the word or that kind of thing. And so for your ELS kids, buddy up is really, really useful to you. You can, if you want, here's what I would do. Here's my suggestion. I would get together with if you have any push-in ELS teachers, yes, I would get together with your English language learner help in your school and get that you and that person can come up with a couple of extra buddy up cards just for your ELS kids, right? And so you can take the buddy up cards and perhaps put your ELS kids in a small group, maybe with a para, maybe with somebody, and take and use your specialized buddy up cards for those ELS kids, right? So that way they are still getting in the content that they need in order to develop their language, but they're kind of specialized with the help and aid of your specialized EL teachers in your classroom. So make a set of buddy up cards just for them. And then you can say, you guys, I want you to use these buddy up cards, but this group, I want you, I know you're working on language. And so here's a section of buddy up cards that you can use.
Awesome, great ideas. So Yako, let's move back to our question slide, and we are coming down to the end of our presentation, and I'll kind of wrap up with our
1 second.
Harmony resources. So, all right.
I tried to make it easier for you.
Thank you so much. And just to reemphasize what Yako said, yes, please check out our YouTube site. If you go to YouTube and type in Sanford Harmony, you will see all of our recorded webinars in the past. In addition to topic webinars, we have our spotlight webinars that feature spotlight schools or champion schools, district leaders, other leadership in social emotional learning. So we have some really good recorded content. We also have more content coming your way. Yako, let's go ahead and move to our last slide.
Okie dokie.
Thank you. So if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to email myself or Yako. Our emails are listed there. And if you haven't checked out our online learning library, our professional learning library, please go ahead and do so. On our PLL, you can access all of our units, our digital versions of our units, our Spanish versions of our units. The QC cards are all there. We have online training. If you need to do a training refresh, you can watch our self-guided modules. If you have a group of teachers that need to get trained again, you can also do a group training that's a digital group training where we actually do have one of our trainers walk you through a training. We cover everything that we would normally cover. It's not live, but it is recorded. Okay. Let's see. It looks like we got a couple more questions coming in. Will there be a professional development certificate available? So we don't give out certificates for our webinars, but if you do complete the trainings, we do provide certificates for those. Thank you for your question. Okay, Yako, thank you so much for being here with us today. Again, we learned so much, and I know this is going to be a very valuable recording for all of our users. I want to remind everyone to please take our survey when the webinar is finished. It's going to launch automatically, and it's really, really short. It's only 4 questions. It should take you less than a minute to finish, but it helps us become better. Your feedback helps us produce more effective webinars in the future, and we're always looking to improve ourselves. Yako, do you have any last-minute comments for our audience?
That is it. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you. I don't take it lightly that you have chosen to spend this time with us. I appreciate you, and thank you very much for spending time with us today. And thank you, Rachel.
Of course. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned for our next webinar. I believe we have one coming up shortly in beginning of April, on April 3rd. That is where we were going to be speaking with Castle leadership. Yako mentioned Castle earlier in her presentation, and this time we will actually be talking to Castle leaders. So stay tuned for that one, and please go ahead and sign up on our website. All right. And with that, I'm going to let you all go. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.